Welcome to the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and I'm excited that you are joining us today. It is an incredible time to experience what it means to have the right conversations that are engaging, elevating health and wellness, and in transforming our bodies, empowering transformation, and all that implies. This is something that the time is now, and so let's take it where it can certainly go. So for no matter how you're tuning in or how you're streaming in, of course, there's different ways that you're tuning into our show right now. If you are streaming in live, don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. And then that way we are able to be connected and you can continue to receive information on the incredible show episodes that we are proud to present to you. Every single one is just a ton of information. Today is no exception. So of course, when we think about how a woman's body is changing, you know, it's always important that we have the opportunity to pee on purpose. And so I would love to do a deeper dive into what this means and how a woman's body transforms as she is going through the postpartum phases of her life changing. And so that means that I've got to share with you my first guest. So my first guest, or my guest today, is Tonie Lough, and she is a mother, an NASM Certified Personal Trainer. Of course, if you don't know what that is, that's National Academy of Sports and Medicine, and a double certified postpartum corrective exercise specialist, which means she gets really granular with how the body is to be moving from a specific phase. And she's transformed her traumatic postpartum experience, of course, she's a mom, into a powerful journey of healing and empowerment, not only for herself, but for other mothers. And she truly believes that strength is the key to rebuilding confidence, especially as a woman's body goes through the different changes as she becomes a mother. Things like diastasis recti, the weak pelvic floor control that I'm a mom too, so I remember those days when I was becoming a mother. And then things such as, you know, the other postpartum bladder control, all of that. These are some of her gems that we are talking about. And so very important to empower women that, you know what, this is only just a moment and we can certainly build from that. So without further ado, let us welcome Tonie Lough. Tonie, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited that you're here. You know, and this is an area that I never really gave too much thought about in the here, except for in the here and the now, when I was becoming a mom. And I know we're going to dive into your ebook. We're going to dive into all the things that you are bringing. Talk a little bit about your journey and how you got to be representing the platform that you are in helping so many women, so many mothers today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting me share. I appreciate it. My journey actually started with a race, a 5K race that I had run several of before prior to having had my son. And I think he was about 13 months old. Ran this race with my dad, streets of downtown Portland, right before this huge parade that like kicks off the summer. So there's like 100,000 spectators. And I had just looked up and noticed like that there were rows of people sitting in the parking structure, like not to mention all the people that had like roped off the road. And not 5 minutes later, just complete and utter bladder release. Like I had no control whatsoever. So I took a hard right, and I was humiliated, I was embarrassed, I was all of those things, but more than absolutely anything, that like I don't even remember the embarrassment and the humiliation now. I know it was there. I'm certain it was there because, of course. But the part that I remember was the utter lack of trust in my body. Just this super deep feeling that it had betrayed me and I didn't understand it anymore. And I had known, I was an adult. I knew my body. And my son was 13 months old. I thought that I had even gotten to know my postpartum body. I'd had a couple of bladder issues when I was running, but nothing bad. It was just like, oh, this is what happens after you have a kid. You hear this all the time. I, in no realm, thought that this would be my experience. And so I stopped running instantly. I didn't trust my body. And I worked out some, I think, but I didn't push myself at all. I was terrified that it was going to happen again. And 2 months later, I got diagnosed with postpartum depression. I think that it was there, to a lesser degree, but I had been able to train and work out and, kind of staved it off a little bit. And actually now I was diagnosed with postpartum depression, but since then, this was 12 years ago, the new term postpartum anxiety has come out more. And I think that that's more what I had, because I was just like chronically overthinking like the worst thing that could happen. And for certain, I can say running would have helped that, right? Like you run off that anxiety. So anyway, I tried to maintain for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then I decided to get certified as a personal trainer, thinking I'm just going to get stronger and being stronger will help it. And it did to a degree. But after I became a personal trainer, I started working at one of the big box gyms. They had 2 hours of free childcare. So there was a ton of moms that were members there. And I started talking to these moms, and so many of them had gone through what I had gone through and worse, with the large diastasis or prolapse, varying degrees of prolapse. Not to mention, of course, the incontinence, because that's the number one thing that people come to me for. And so that was when I started pursuing my first postpartum corrective exercise specialty with Fit for Birth. They're out of Miami. They're holistic. It's a great one. I love it. And they introduced me for the first time to the posture and breathing, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit here.
Yes.
And then I got a second one about a year later, because this woman that I follow, Dr. Sarah Ellis Duvall, she's amazing. She's a physical therapist. She put out a postpartum corrective exercise specialty, and I love her. She's so, so knowledgeable. And so I purchased that one as well, just to get what she knows, a little bit of what she knows.
Wow. And so with this journey, so here you're touching on something that's incredibly important. That's getting more highlights now, that women and postpartum depression. I know that I have 4 kids, and when I was pregnant, when I gave birth to number 2, that was the one distinctive time that it hit me. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you noticed in hindsight that maybe were leading up to your aha moments, especially after that moment when you were racing.
Yeah, the ones that like made me go, maybe there's something going on here with
Yes.
postpartum depression. Yeah, it was, I was very engaged with my son. I felt like I was all throughout the day, but the more like tired I would get in particular, I remember there were certain times when I would be like just staring off and not eat, and like all of a sudden go, where have I been? Like, what's going on? And, had been playing with him and then just staring, like, if he had moved out of eyesight, I'm certain it would have pulled me back. It wasn't, at that point for me, it wasn't to, dangerous conditions, although for some women it absolutely is. And so, but it was things like that where I was like, where did I go? And I just felt very flat. That was the thing that I didn't feel like I had any highs or real big lows. So that one, the feeling very flat, and then also staying up in the middle of the night with that overthinking. I would see headlines in my head, like, family goes on hike and gets mauled by a bear, like silly stuff. So then, of course, I'm not going to go for a hike. Right?
That's true. And I remember when I went through it, it was just it felt surreal. Like, I guess it happened. It's almost like a frog in a hot water effect. If you know that analogy, that, if you put a frog in, what, for viewers who are tuning in and are like, what is she talking about? You take a quick analogy. If you take a body of water and you put a frog in there, it's not going to move. But if you slowly turn up the degrees, and so it'll continue, it's conditioned to it until, if you bring it to boiling, unfortunately, that frog will meet fate. But the same thing, that it going back, I remember things were moving at a gradual pace. I didn't catch it on the fly that I was going through things. Did you have the necessary conversations with your OB, with your healthcare providers at that time after your son was born?
I didn't, with regards to postpartum depression, immediately after. You get a lot of, short appointments, kind of rote questions. That's changed, thankfully, somewhat over the last handful of years. There's been a lot more research into, that fourth trimester, they call it. And it's amazing. There's so many more people talking about it. So there's a lot of really good things happening, although there are for sure still women that are falling, victim to not getting treated, not getting the help that they could get, the help that's out there now, for sure.
So you're going through the certifications, you're getting the right credentials. What did you notice of the dialogue that was taking place with other women around you, whether it was in the gym, whether it was women who were part of your inner circle, acquaintances? What did you notice about some of the things that they were bringing up, maybe aha moments that they had?
The biggest aha moment I would have with clients, because I would, particularly in this box gym, a lot of them got a few free sessions. And so in these free sessions, I would try to get across these, as quickly as I could in this 30 minutes. This is what will work for you. This is why you're going to help to feel stronger and more in control of your body. And more than anything, I heard, why doesn't anybody tell you this? Why doesn't your doctor tell you this? Why don't, the women that tell you this? And a lot of them, particularly over the years, it's back, this was 2015, 2018 that I worked there, we weren't talking about it as much. And so what you hear from well-meaning moms, sisters, aunts, friends is you have to cross your legs for the rest of your life when you sneeze. And, that's just what happens when you have a baby. That was what society, culture, family, everything had ingrained in me. That was what I thought when I was starting to have those little bit of bladder issues when I was training for the 5K. Well, this is what happens, thinking that it wouldn't turn surely into something that it did.
And honestly, I can relate to that because by the time the fourth one came, they're very close in age. And so when she was born, for me, I remember I committed to wearing only dark bottoms, that this was the only, when I was in the gym and I was bouncing back, and anytime I was active, I knew that I was only going to wear dark bottoms for that very reason, because I felt like I was just not as strong as I remembered that I once was. And so the dialogue, so you're having conversations, you're hearing women say this, and then as you're getting credentialed, what did you notice the trends in how information is shared for women, especially over the last, say, decade or so?
Yeah. And, social media has its good parts and its bad parts, but it's been really good, I think, in just, I can share my story, so that people can hear, oh, those little bit of accidents that are happening, a little bit of nothing really that you consider when you're running could turn into something really big in this one time, and you're going to feel betrayed. And that could just be relatable. Like, oh my gosh, that happened to me at the mall last week, or it happened to me as I was just getting to the bathroom. There's a lot of parts about incontinence. There's urge incontinence and stress incontinence, and I won't go too far into it. But oftentimes, in this urge incontinence, you put your key in the front door, and it triggers your body, and then you lose, your bladder, or right before you get to the bathroom, right before you get to the toilet. There's a lot of different aspects of it, but still, I feel like through social media and people hearing other stories, being relatable, and then going, okay, so if we can all relate to this now, what are we all going to do? What's the next step? Where do we go forward? And, there's a lot of pelvic floor physical therapists that are online now, that you can follow that do, a lot of really good. Dr. Sarah Ellis Duvall, the one that my second certification, she's constantly giving little video clips online, for when you're sitting in the car, when you're trying to jump rope, when you're trying to do all these things, what your body should be feeling like and what it might be feeling like if you do have some of these lingering postpartum issues, like the diastasis, the prolapse, the super weak core, or super weak or overly strong pelvic floor.
So question for you. So as you're getting all the right experience underneath your belt, what has it been like to talk to other providers that women typically have in their inner circle? So like, say, conversations that you've either had with your doctor or other doctors, or, different types of events in which, if it's health and fitness and this gets brought up, what has that been like to talk with, say, physicians or OB-GYNs or others in that space that do treat women who have these experiences?
Honestly, it's been very empowering because a lot of these people have been doing it for, far longer than I have. I mean, there's pelvic floor physical therapists. There used to be just a few of them, decades ago. Thankfully, there are a lot more now. But listening to them, talk about their experiences with these women, and, some of them, like concierge physical therapists, will actually go to the mom's house, which is, I think, absolutely amazing that they don't have to worry about childcare and they're in their cozy, comfortable, wherever, is best for them in their house. But it's really been helpful to talk to them. And again, just really feel empowered because they have solutions, they're constantly telling women. And so it's just, that means information is disseminating, more and more all the time, which is fantastic. We deserve it as moms.
Yes. Where are some of the pitfalls in women not getting this type of support? Like, where do you feel like some of the obstacles have been as you're continuing to interact with postpartum women, for mothers who are actively working on getting their bodies back, their health back to where it needs to be? What are some pitfalls that you've noticed, drawbacks or obstacles?
Yeah, one of the biggest obstacles is how little sometimes people want to talk about it because it is private. And I understand that it's private, which is another useful fact, I think, for social media, because somebody can access it without having to tell all their friends and family what's happening with them, like I do. But they can access it and see that there's help out there. But there's even a lot of doctors, unfortunately, that don't want to talk about it. And either because it's too big of a conversation, it's too uncomfortable a conversation, or their training was, say if you, have pain with intercourse, they say, have a glass of wine beforehand, instead of wondering, why do you have pain with intercourse? And let's make it so that you don't. And so sometimes maybe if you have just a short period of time with a patient, that's just easier to say, have a glass of wine. So there's lots of reasons for it, and I understand so many of those reasons. If you are limited on time and or you don't have somebody that you can recommend out to. I have a client that had pelvic floor weakness, and they just instantly wanted to go to surgery instead of saying, can we try to at least strengthen the pelvic floor first? Is there anything we can do? She asked about pelvic floor physical therapy, and the doctor said, no, just surgery.
Wow.
If your patient is asking you,
yes,
surely you at least have somebody in your back pocket that you can refer to, so we were able to work together and help.
And you bring up a great point. It's important that we have the right conversations with physicians, because and in all fairness, of course, it's fair to say that there are some out there that are limited with this type of expertise, maybe the in-depth information that comes along with something like that. The dismissal is always just kind of like, I feel a certain type of way about it, because it's almost as though even if say physician doesn't have, or healthcare provider doesn't have the answer, at the very least, the effort to refer her to someone, or at least a staff member to follow up and serve, or to refer her, so that way that they're not left hanging going, I guess it is what it is. And so have you had a particular conversation with anyone that it was just like a light bulb moment in the clinical field where they're like, wow, I didn't know all of this was available, and now I know I'm going to incorporate it?
I feel like with physicians and with, although I do, thankfully, I am surrounded by a lot. Thankfully, there's fewer and far between. I'm surrounded by a lot in the network, my networking group, naturopath chiropractors, acupuncture, again, lots of pelvic floor physical therapists that are aware. So I appreciate that. But you will see it in like in chat rooms and that type of thing, where somebody, in some more rural area maybe was like, well, this isn't even a concept that I've thought of.
So probably just a level of exposure based on demographics, maybe. Okay. Wow. Very important points. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back here on the Health Revolution.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on the Tour of Love.
And the E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. We are so glad that you joined us. Don't forget that we are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are spending much needed quality time with my guest, Tonie Lough, double certified postpartum corrective exercise specialist. We are talking about all things postpartum and her methods to help empower women, mothers everywhere to really take control of their core functioning and elevate their health to new heights. So Tonie, as we're moving along, I know that you talked about you're having the conversations with healthcare providers. You've been able to discover that there are new conversations to be had, and talk about the different elements that are important. How do you address, or where do you start when a woman comes to you and says, you know, I'm having an issue with my body. I just can't seem to, there are certain things that are kind of out of control when it comes to my bladder, when it comes to diastasis recti, I don't know what to do. Where do you start with her?
I love this question. Thank you so much for asking. So I offer, over the years, I started offering free workshops. And the two things that I teach to all moms, and I will tell anybody that will stop and listen to me, is proper breathing and proper posture. And it's shocking because so many people, you think, I get around all day long. I can breathe in my sleep, so surely I'm okay and I'm doing all right. But in our stress society, in our cell phone society, and in the postpartum, when everything's a little bit lax and your center of gravity has shifted with being pregnant, first of all, and then often we kind of get into this forward shoulder from holding, from breastfeeding, from everything, we sit really, really forward. And then you add in a cell phone, you add in stress, it can really do a number on our breathing and posture mechanics. And so the first thing that we do is we discuss breathing and posture. And I've heard so many clients, even once, I was saying that those 30-minute sessions that I would have at the box gym where I would just get as much information out as possible, several times when I was working there, I had women come in even the next day going, oh my gosh, I feel so much stronger just getting my rib cage down, or just, working on the breathing, getting some movement through my lower abs. And so I'll run through a really quick tutorial if that works.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. So I tell moms to practice the breathing at night after the kiddos go to bed, because any kind of distraction, our breathing patterns change. And so practice at night, do these 10 breaths or 10 minutes. So whatever you can get to. Oftentimes women won't get to the 10 minutes because they fell asleep. Because it kicks on the parasympathetic system, which that just tells you your body needed it, right?
Yes.
And so you're going to lay down on your bed. You're going to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your lower belly. And you're just going to start taking nice, big, deep breaths. What we're looking for here is for the lower belly hand to move first on the inhale and the exhale. And so the upper body, the hand on the chest, is going to move, and that's perfectly fine. We want it to, but we want the lower hand to move first. So on your deep breath in, you're really relaxing all the way through the lower abs, through the ribs, through the back, even through the pelvic floor. And then the chest will fill up the rest of the way for your inhale. And then you exhale, you scoop from the pubic symphysis all the way up behind the belly, pushing the air up and out. So again, the hand on the belly moves first. So understanding right now, people could be doing all kinds of things and not have time to do it. So just that's the key takeaway, is when you're doing this practice later on, put your hand on your belly and your chest, and the belly hand moves first on the inhale and first on the exhale. And when we start to do this, we get the lower ab muscles, the pelvic floor muscles, the back, the ribs, everything starting to be able to relax. And again, when we're in a really stressful society, situation, environment, those tend to stay contracted. And so that's the first thing we want to do, is get nice, big, deep breaths in. This will also kick on the parasympathetic system. That's the rest, restore, relax, regrow, the good feelings, the relaxed feelings, the falling asleep. And then we work on posture. So you're going to come nice and tall through the neck, and you bring the chin in just a little bit. That the chin in, look around, we all have this phone going forward, right? And that really brings our chin forward, which actually affects the entire spine all the way through the pelvis. So once you even just bring your chin in, you correct a lot. And that is the type of thing that can help things like the diastasis and the prolapse, particularly the lower degrees of the prolapse. The higher degrees obviously have a lot more work that needs to go into them. But even just bring the chin in, bring the shoulders away from the ears, nice and relaxed. Because when we're stressed, we go like this, right?
Yes, we do. We need to bring them back.
Yes. And bring them away from the ears, and then the rib cage over the pelvis. And so that one can be, I always tell people to go into a mirror, like your bathroom mirror, somewhere where you can stand sideways, and then you can get a really good idea with what it looks like to have your rib cage over your pelvis. And oftentimes either like the rib cage points out and the pelvis points forward, or it could be the other way. Usually it's something like that, but it just depends. And it could be off center, left and right as well. But even if just standing tall through the neck and bringing the chin in, if those are the only two things that you remember about the posture, that's going to help a lot. Even just to have more control, everything's not hanging down on the bladder, right? Once we come nice and tall. So sometimes even just taking some of the pressure off the bladder can help in retraining for healthy bladder habits, and then getting the breathing so that we've got everything again in a nice, healthy muscle. We can relax and contract at will.
So there's the two things, and you bring up, these are powerful takeaways, and I really appreciate you sharing with them on here. It's funny because the one thing that strikes me is that as we're moving in society, you highlighted something that we tend to carry stress. We have, this is so very common, that what I love about what you're sharing is that it's an intentional reconnection with yourself. And so that's not something that society insists that we do. It seems like somewhere along the ways there's to a degree, a level of disconnect, and that at least with just the breathing, at least that starts from that creates a foundation to move from, would you say?
Absolutely. And I think that once we get in this really stressed, which, just living in society can be stressful right now, but then you add maybe 3 kids under the age of 5, and good Lord, talk about stress, right? And so, we can kind of get carried with the flow of it and completely forget that there is something that is a tool for us that we can use in this moment of coming nice and tall. Also, when you come nice and tall, then you also are able to get bigger breaths, those bigger, more relieving breaths. And so, it's important to not just focus on one or the other, but to focus on both the breathing and the posture. But that, can just bring you, like you're saying, like just bring you back into the moment, and to see that you have some semblance of control over this moment right now, and your breath and your stress level.
So how often should somebody be doing this? How much of a priority does it need to be?
Yeah, excellent. I tell my clients to focus on one habit a week. So whether it is, I always tell them to do it at night before bed, because it's going to just help you to go to sleep. That's all there is to it, right? So that's only beneficial. If you're up for the midnight feeding, it's going to help you to get back to sleep. So many uses for it at night for moms. But then also, start with your more mundane tasks that, again, you're not, the kids are not involved. So when you're brushing your teeth, how are you standing? How are you breathing? Where are your shoulders? Where's your chin? So just pick whatever kind of more mundane task that you do on a regular basis. If you forget, I always tell people, because I understand as moms, it's going to happen. If you forget that you even watched this show in a week, that's okay. Start then, and even if you just get one day a week on one habit, sure, it's great if you can get brushing your teeth every day for a week, because that's going to kind of stick with you when you change your habit the following week. But just focus on one thing a week. It could be when you're doing dishes. It could be when you are walking the dog. It could be when you're sitting in your car at a stoplight, or at a stop sign, not when you're driving, focus on the road when you're driving. But if you're sitting in traffic or you're stopped at a long light or something, take a moment. I really like for people to do it in the car because you can come nice and tall, and our car seats can kind of mess with our posture a little bit, or how we sit in the car.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to get your opinion on that, because most cars today have bucket seats. And the last time I sat in my car, I remember, which was earlier today, and I felt like when I was consciously thinking about how my neck just quote unquote naturally protrudes, but just because of the shape of the headrest.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on the contour of a car seat, of our bucket seats in the car. And how do you combat that if you discover, wow, I'm really sinking into my car when I'm behind the wheel?
Yeah. And I noticed that with our car that we got a few years ago, that it was pushing so much further forward than mine. And so I just really pushed my seat back as much as I comfortably can while still sitting upright, and then sitting close to fairly close to the steering wheel itself. That also puts my legs in a good position so that I'm not really reaching one leg forward to push on the gas, because that can kind of wreak havoc with your hips, your pelvis as well, and then the whole chain. You can get the lumbar support. I really like that. It just really depends on your car on if it has lumbar support, or if you get like an added something, that like goes over the back of the seat and hangs down for your low back. But I really like that. Like, I don't like that mine pushes my head forward, but mine does have some lumbar support. And so that when I'm doing the breathing in my car, that's when I can really get the feedback from my ribs and my lower back, that I'm getting the nice big deep breaths, because sometimes we don't feel that. And so we think it's not as important, but the 360-degree breathing all the way through your ribs is really important for getting, just again, a healthy muscle can relax and contract at will. So sometimes the car can be useful for that, for feeling the low back feedback.
And it's funny because you bring up the breathing, and I know that for me, every time I've been very intentional on deep breathing, the shoulders kind of slide down. So then, to what extent have we been keeping our shoulders close to our ears?
Yeah, right. And stress does it. And stress, that, they'll call that stress breathing, is when we're chest breathing and not doing more of a belly breath. I don't love the term belly breath, only because that does imply that only your belly should be moving. And like I was just saying, it should be 360 degrees. But taking that aside, the belly breathing is more that deep breathing. And these are our inner core unit is our diaphragm, our lowest level of abs, our TVA, our pelvic floor, and our multifidus in the back. Those are our respiratory muscles, right? So the respiratory lungs, our organs are the lungs, but our respiratory muscles are actually sitting in our core. These are our secondary muscles, but they like to kick in when we're stressed. And then once we're stressed, they stay up until we relax, either through sleep or through an active breathing habit that we can start to instill. But yeah, they like to go crazy.
So if somebody's chronically stressed, then this is a roller coaster situation that they could likely be going through, right? That their stress is keeping them in this state. And then if they're not conscious about it, then the only time that they would quote unquote relax is during sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're only going to get if you're chronically stressed and have been holding these muscles locked down for years, there's a good argument that you're only going to get so much so much of a relaxed state during sleep anyway. And so all the more reason to try to carve out even 5 minutes, 2 minutes, get 5 breaths. Like just being aware of your breath for a moment is really going to help to bring that breath a little bit further down in the body. But yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
There's research actually out about how we hold our bodies can influence our moods. And it's things like that because when we're here, we're not living in our parasympathetic mode, the vagus nerve that attaches to all of our organs, that helps to balance our hormones, helps with digestion. There's so many benefits that we get just from breathing deeply that we don't even know about. And so if we can bring the shoulders down and get those nice big deep breaths, you're getting all the internal work just, firing exactly how it should. And that's super important for the postpartum mom to be able to do things like balance the hormones, ease digestion, get some sleep, relax.
And it's a lot bigger than we realize, and I love how you're highlighting this, because it seems like there's this domino effect that is traveling through the body when we're purposefully taking the time out to breathe like this, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. When you're affecting, the hormones, the muscles, the organs, all of it.
And this is huge. And so as you're talking to other moms and they're discovering this for the first time, do some find it hard to believe that this is, that this is an incredible way to kickstart things off for them to go in the right direction? That's something as quote unquote as basic or simple, for lack of a better phrase, as being that connection, breathing. Do some struggle, or like what has been some of the input that you've heard from other women?
Yeah, because, kind of like I was saying at the beginning was, I've been walking around my whole life. I can breathe in my sleep. It seems like far too simple. And I say that it is really simple. It's so simple. It can be so simple. But it's so vital. It's so important. But yeah, there are women that, you can kind of see it in their eyes, just like, this lady's crazy. Okay. But once I start to talk about, the vagus nerve and how it's not, I'm not just saying that I want you to stand upright and breathe and, just because it looks better or anything like that. It's because of what it makes you feel like, and it's, once I start explaining the hormone balancing and the parasympathetic system, then I tend to get women going, oh, okay, I'll give it a try. What does it hurt? I'll try it when I'm brushing my teeth. And then the next session is when I'll hear, oh my gosh, I stand so wrong when I'm brushing my teeth. I didn't even know.
So how long have you noticed? And obviously we're going to throw it out there that this type of journey absolutely varies from one woman to the next. How much time have you noticed? Is there a tendency for things to be noticeable for a woman to notice some changes, or to at least share her feedback, like, oh my goodness, here's what I'm noticing about me that maybe I didn't pay attention to before?
Yeah, it happens much sooner than you think. There are, when I was working at the gym, I worked with hundreds of women. I was there for several years. And in that time, I had 2 women that weren't able to get to the breath in our 4 sessions, in our, the free sessions. But both of them came back to me later. Like one was like 3 months later, one was like 5 months later, and said, I finally got it. I finally got it. I can finally get the breath to move. One of them had just had twins, in that first few months. So it's stress, right? There's a lot going on. But the important takeaway for me, for both of them, was that obviously that meant they kept trying. They didn't just stop and go, it's not for me. I don't know.
So that also lends itself into just hanging in there and not deciding too soon that something like this is not going to help elevate a woman's health, but that this is another element of this new foundation, that if we can just hang on long enough, that we'll be able to, before deciding prematurely, that we'll be able to see results, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And again, that they both kept trying. I was so happy for them, and glad that they came and told me this. But it's something that, you see it when you're using your habits, and brushing your teeth in front of the mirror. You see it in your body. Oftentimes we don't feel our adjustments, but when you can really see, like, oh, wait a second, I was sideways. I didn't realize that. You can see that really quickly. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right. And so it's just that awareness is going to constantly be there. And just, that little cue that says, hey, it's time to stand tall, bring your chin in, take your deep breaths.
That's very powerful, very powerful. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back here on The Health Revolution.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. My guest today is Tonie Lough, double certified postpartum corrective exercise specialist. And let me point out to our viewers tuning in live and also on demand replay that at the bottom of the show, you'll see that there are some show notes and we've got some incredible takeaway information for you. And so for those of you who have been tuning in, of course, we're talking about ways in which we can help the body in postpartum phase, things such as bladder control, diastasis recti, the incontinence, things like that, and just how important the foundation is. And Tonie, just touch a little bit about how the breath work and other elements can help for some of these situations that I just mentioned.
Yeah. So the breath work again, so a healthy muscle can relax and contract at will. And what often happens with something like diastasis, it could be a weakness, it could be, that there's a tightness somewhere in the chain. And then pelvic floor dysfunction, same thing. Prolapse could be a lot of different things, and there's several grades to prolapse. I do not try to say that breathing and posture can help like grade 3 and grade 4 of prolapse. However, it can help. It is definitely useful to an extent. Once you get the breathing and posture on board, then you can start working on some of the other stuff to heal it. But for grades 1 and grade 2, it can be extremely helpful because we want to be able to be aware of our muscles, where they are. We want to be aware of any imbalances. So as we work through, some of these issues that can happen and that can linger for many, many years in the postpartum, we look for muscle imbalances. We look for, structural stuff, like the shoulders and the hips, like I was talking about. But even just getting the rib cage over the pelvis, it helps with how everything works and flows together. Being nice and tall through the posture, again, takes some of the pressure off of the organs through the pelvis, which is extremely important as far as prolapse and bladder incontinence. Getting the natural curvature of the lumbar spine, which again, just coming tall will help that. A diastasis is another thing that it can be different for different people, but it can be a pressurization thing in our prolapse, and any of the pelvic floor dysfunction can be a pressurization thing. Well, when you think pressurization, I want you to think breathing, right? Because it's how we pressurize our system when we're lifting things. And so just getting the breathing and the posture into your habits can start to heal some of those different issues, particularly the ones that are just kind of there, just a little bit of a diastasis, or a little bit like I had the little hints from earlier on before my run. I had little hints. My breathing and posture were off and could have definitely, I could have benefited and not had the experience that I had, because I just had some muscle tightness.
Yes. Now you brought up a good point. I had a question for you on this. So does it matter how long after a woman has a baby that she could tap into some of these elements to help her be stronger? Does it have to, obviously the sooner the better, but say if a woman's been, like say in your position where your son was 13 months and you had the situation in the run and the aha moment, does it matter how long it takes? Is there a window period to speak about?
You know, like you said, you know, it's always best when your body is in that healing stage already in the postpartum. You know, when we're newly postpartum, there's a lot of healing elements and help that our body is offering to heal. So if you can get it then, great. But oftentimes you don't even know that you have it then, right? You don't see it until it comes out later on down the road. And some people have been living with it for 10, 15, 20 years. So absolutely any age can be helped. I like to say, you know, eventually I'd like to get into senior centers, because you know that they can be helped. If you don't see 100% healing, isn't 80% fantastic, right? Like,
That's,
you know,
better
even
than zero.
exactly, even if it's been many, many years. My grandma, in the last 2 years of her life, you know, her quality of life really went down because of bladder issues. And I wish I would have known the things that I know now, just to give her enough control to go out in society, you know, to go to family functions and stuff like that, that she wasn't able to go to because of insecurity. And so anything 50% better, you know, would be great. And you can easily, depending on the degree of whatever of the issue that you have, you can easily see 80, 100% healing. Even it just starts with the awareness of where the muscles are in your body and how you can contract them and relax them at will.
Wow, I love how you unpack all of these important areas that affect more women than we realize. And I want to segue into what you tend to bring to the table. So I'm going to venture and say that you not only work in person with clients who are within your area, but you also work in the virtual space. Tell us a little bit about that. And then of course, I'd like to bring up the slide that talks a little bit about your coursework. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I love working in person with the moms. I also do love doing the online stuff though, because you can reach women in so many areas that don't have the access that we have here. You know, I live just outside of Portland, Oregon. So there's a ton of providers that I could go to for any number of postpartum issues that I'm suffering from. But part of the online path helps me to get to, you know, the more rural areas that I just feel like every mom should have access to this information.
Yes, and I come from the school of sharing is caring. So talk a little bit about your coursework that you are offering here. I know we have the slide here for our viewers. Say a little bit more of what is on the horizon for upcoming women that you are planning on working with.
Sure. So this class, this is an online class. I think it'll probably be up to 8 or 9 women. This is another good resource, I think, for when you are not able to get childcare. And so, you know, I've had childcare or children, dogs, you know, whatever. It happens. The thing about this course that I really love is that I do talk about the posture and the breathing, because again, I tell anybody that'll stand still and listen to me. But we also go into what's called DNS. It's dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. I won't go too far into it, but it's essentially a lot of rolling patterns, and it kind of hacks the system, the nervous system, so that we can kind of get past some of our muscle imbalances and our, you know, habitual movements that are causing problems, and start to really strengthen the core and getting the whole body online quickly.
So I love this because it's very specific. This is like we're getting right to the heart of the matter. And I love how you explain just what the visual is, what the setup is going to be for anyone who takes part. So this is important information. Talk to us a little bit about your ebook. And I know we're going to switch up slides momentarily. Talk to us about the ebook that you have available today.
Excellent. So this ebook, actually, I started this as soon as COVID hit, because I had been teaching an 8-week class, a fitness class for moms at one of the local gyms here. COVID hit, shut everything down, understandably. And so I went, well, people still need, who knows how long we're going to be closed. You know, we didn't know originally how long we're going to be closed, and I still wanted to get this information out. And so I wrote this, and there are 8 weeks of exercise videos. They're all about 20 minutes long. And yeah, so you have access to that whole 8-week program with the ebook. And for your listeners today, I'll do a 25% off discount. So the code will be HEALTH25, all caps, all one word.
Health 25. That's fantastic. And I love how, and you said and this is another step-by-step where that level of progression is very detailed for a woman really tapping into this.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. I walk you step-by-step through all of it.
Yes. I love how you share your journey, because of course it's important for us to be able to hear that level of relatability from someone who has been on that path that say so many women maybe struggle with, where they're thinking, I don't know even how to start. So, and this is obviously for any woman who as she's embarking on her postpartum journey. And this is for anyone that fits in that category, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And tools that you can take with you, you know, for when you have a cold or when you're older or when you're stressed, you know, there's always, it's a good tool to always have.
So this is a multi-purpose reference tool then.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back here on the Health Revolution.
Jeff Pearson here, host of Invisible Condition, where we talk about all the people who are living and thriving with all those conditions that you can't necessarily see from the outside. Join me every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. We've been spending some quality time with Tonie Lough, double certified postpartum corrective exercise specialist. And Tonie, let's talk about where viewers can tune into you. So we're going to go ahead and bring up your website, and then in doing so, talk a little bit about where they can reach out to you. Where on social media?
Yeah. So on Instagram, on Facebook, Instagram is at mom_home_fitness, and just Mom Home Fitness on Facebook. I've just recently ventured into Twitter and Threads, but it's just a lot of redundancy, so I'm not talking about that. And then my website, you can email me through my website if you have any questions. Also through the website, there is a scheduling button for a free consult, so that I try to get all that information, kind of like the classes or the sessions that I taught years ago at the gym was, you know, getting this information out and then kind of seeing how it relates to you, you know, in that one-on-one free consult that could be scheduled right through that website.
Right, fantastic. And I'll tell you, anything else that you've got coming up on the horizon as we head into 2024, things that to be on the lookout for, anything that coming up that our viewers would definitely be wanting to tune in for?
Sure. Yeah, be on the lookout for the second part to getting to the core of postpartum fitness. So that is up to 8 weeks. And so I would like to do more, and that's a lot of, again, rolling patterns. You get really good core strengthening and get control over a lot of the postpartum issues. And I'd like to get more into the strengthening, a little bit more into weightlifting and body weight movements in maybe a 9 to 16 week version.
Ooh, so there are some things on the horizon. So for viewers tuning in, definitely be on the lookout for this, and then of course the different ways to get a hold of Tonie and connect with her and the programs that she has to offer. And so Tonie, I really appreciate your time and energy today. I love that you are speaking in this space, because more women do need to hear about this, because this can certainly optimize. This is a tool that can optimize a woman's health going forward, as she's just every chapter in her life going forward.
Absolutely. Exactly. Thank you so much for having me too. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, I appreciate you being here. And for those of you tuning in, of course, our website, if you are interested in connecting and staying connected with the show, we're going to bring that up for you. You'll see that here. You can also, that's where you can subscribe to our show and also add any input, if you have any questions, any ideas, any topics that would be important to you, those of you who are tuning in. We certainly appreciate you. Don't forget that the show notes at the bottom of the screen, and you can find the Health Revolution on the Achieve TV channel every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until our next episode, definitely take care. Thank you for joining us. We will see you again soon.